Good morning. This morning I want to start with a story that impressed me years and years ago. And it was in the time when I was a national service chaplain in the army, and I was stationed in Forsyth in Middelburg. And it is about 33 years ago in 1989, early in that year. And while I was stationed there, there was this African man that was kind of in charge of the gardeners and the black people that worked in the garden. But this was a very, very interesting man, because he was issued an army overall, and he had that floppy hat, army hat, and he had boots, but his boots were immaculately polished. I think he boned them, but they were shining. They were better polished than anybody else in the whole Forsyth. And his overall was ironed immaculately to the T. It was absolutely perfect. And then he had this hat on his head, and he had a kind of a briefcase always under his arm, and there was something in there, and he made notes and things like that. But he was in charge of all the gardeners there, the people working in the garden. And but he had such a wonderful attitude. He had a great smile with this dark face and this white teeth, and he loved to do the kind of army things. He loved to salute the officers, and he always saluted, and he always greeted you on your rank, and he had enormous respect. And whenever there was something that had to be done in the garden, they would call everybody and they would tell him, and it will be done. He just had authority and in the army, and that was, it was before the change of government, and he had such a great attitude. I really liked this guy, this man, and always spoke to him. And then one morning, and that's where the story started, that impressed me so much. There was a knock on my door. My door was open, but he knocked on my door. I was sitting behind the desk of my chaplain office, and he came in and he stamped his foot, and he saluted me, and he greeted me, and then I saluted him, and he came in, and he stood before me, and I said, "No, be at ease." But because he was standing there, very, very formal, and he said, "Dominee," because everybody called you Dominee in those days in the army. He said, "Dominee, do you have a word for me this morning?" But I was so surprised, because he had this great attitude, and I thought he didn't have problems, and he didn't have challenges in his life, and all the others of us had. But he had this wonderful smile and attitude. But that morning he said, "Do you have a word for me this morning?" And when somebody just asks you if you have a word, and suddenly you are the dominee and you should have a word, and I didn't really have a word, but I remembered a word I read a day or two before, when it was when we had a parade, and I had to open the parade, and I remembered it was Matthew 11 from verse 28, and I said, "Yes, I have a word for you," because that's the only word that came into my mind. And then I got my Bible out. We had these small red Bibles. Those that was in the army in those days will still remember that issued red Bible that we got, and I got it out because it fitted in your pants pocket, and it fitted in your normal pocket, and so I pulled it out, and I was looking for Matthew 11 from verse 28. And when I was opening, and the moment I got it and I looked at him again, he was on his knees. I don't know if I can do it like this. He was suddenly on his knees, and he took his hat off, and he was standing there with his hat, on his knees, standing with his hat in his hand. And I was shocked for a moment, because I realized it was utmost reverence and respect for the Word of God. He was there, and he believed he was going to get a word right from heaven, from God. And he had such a adoration and such a respect and such a humble attitude of worship. And like the fear of the Lord was upon him, and he was standing there with his hat in. He was on his knees in a worship position, and I read the words to him. And it said, then Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." So I read it to him, and he was standing there with this fear of the Lord and the adoration and the respect. And then he told me, "Dominee, now you need to pray for me. Because the devil has put a lot of weight on my back. And he's put a lot of things in my pack, and you must pray that the Lord must take away all the things the devil has put in my pack." Because when I said this burden that you carry, he immediately thought it was a pack, like a backpack, like an army pack that we had. And he said, "You must pray that the Lord must remove everything from the devil. And the Lord must put in my pack only that he wants, so that my pack can become light, and that I would have peace and rest, and that this burden that is light would be on my shoulder." And I was again, a little bit astonished. But he was standing there, and he just bowed his head, sitting on his knees with his hands like this. And I can still, if I close my eyes at this moment, I can see him in front of me. And he was so ready that I must pray for him. So I prayed a prayer, and I can't even remember what I prayed, because I was just seeing this humble black man in absolute worship and adoration and respect and fear of the Lord. And he was really expecting something to happen to him. I don't know what happened to him eventually, but it impressed me so much that picture and the whole experience kept on flowing through my soul. And the last few days, when I read this verse again, I was thinking about that black man, and I was thinking about this verse, and it's still flowing in and around me, in my soul. But then, a while after that, I read the verses before, because it's the last few verses of a passage where Jesus was praying. And Jesus was praying to the Father. And I want to read you this, because it is so beautiful. Verse 25, Matthew 12. At that time, Jesus prayed this prayer: "O Father, Lord of heaven and earth." Jesus was in this absolute adoration, worship, praying to the Father. "O Father, you who are Lord of heaven and earth, I thank you for hiding these things from those who think themselves wise and clever, and for revealing them to the childlike. Yes, Father, it pleased you to do it this way." You know, that black man taught me how we must go to the Father. He went with a childlike faith, respect and adoration. And these things of the word was hidden to a lot of wise and brilliant people. And I just came out of university, and I've seen a lot of brilliant scholars, I've seen professors, I've seen very, very bright students, and I was just one of the mediocre ones. But some of them got doctor's degrees later on and became atheists. I can think of at least 3 at this stage that got a doctor's degree and after that just didn't believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, because these things were hidden to them, because they thought they're so wise and so clever. And if we try to explain everything in our mind and with our logic, then things will be hidden to us. But he says, and for revealing them to the childlike. Yes, Father, it pleased you to do it this way. We need to be like that black man. I can't even remember his name. I wish I could remember his name now. I just remember how immaculately he was dressed, how bright his boots were shining, and the wonderful attitude and that smile of those white teeth against the dark skin. And then kneeling there in my office on the carpet, like a child. And I am so certain he received something where a lot of people will not receive. But then he understood authority. He really understood authority. And he respected the line of authority, and he lived within the line, and he exercised the authority that he had, because the people under him had a lot of respect for him, and they obeyed him. And the gardens at that stage were immaculate. And verse 27 said, my Father has entrusted everything to me. So Jesus was talking about authority. No one truly knows the Son except the Father, and no one truly knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. I hope you are one of those that the Son has chosen to reveal himself. And if that is true, and you can come with this humble attitude, childlike attitude like that black man, then Jesus said, come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and my burden, the burden I give you, is light. For 33 years, I desire to have that kind of attitude, that kind of humility and that childlike faith. And that is what I pray for each and every one of you. May you have that same attitude, not depending on your own logic and your own understanding, your own cleverness and your own wisdom, but allowing Jesus to teach us. And it will change us, and the burden will suddenly lift. Because there's a lot of heavy burdens that the devil wants to put in our pack. That must be taken away, and we must only carry what Jesus wants us to carry, because that burden is rest for our souls, and it's light to bear.